Welcome back to the Swearwolves Podcast. I'm Bret. Today's episode is episode 4, The Thing About Sci-Fi Horror. The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing from 1982, is one of our favorite movie. As you can see by the stuff right here, I have tons of, well, not tons, I have quite a bit of The Thing collectibles. That's an original one sheet right there, signed by the majority of the cast. John Carpenter signed it, Keith David, the majority of the living cast. Actually, David's going to Texas Frightmare here this year. This is 2023, and he's going to get Richard Masur and Joel Polis, who I'm missing off of that. Other than them, the only other person that I need that's alive is Kurt Russell. So Kurt, if you're listening, hit me up, please. I need your autograph on my poster just to make it complete. I'm not going to sell it. I just need to make it complete. So The Thing is one of our favorite horror movies, and it is a sci-fi horror film, and that's kind of its own genre in of itself. I don't know if we talk about the movie Alien, but Alien would be an example of this. I think The Fly. I mean, those are probably 3 of the best sci-fi horror films, in my opinion, of all time. I guess They Live by John Carpenter is also one of my favorites. That would be up there for me. So there's lots of those types of movies that we discuss in this episode. But this is mostly a John Carpenter, like, we're gonna suck him off for a fucking hour. We also talk about The Thing board game that Mondo put out a couple years back, The Thing video game from 2002, various different The Thing collectibles, and how we've met some of the cast. At this point in time, this was back in 2018, we had met a lot of the cast at Son of Monsterpalooza. We hadn't met John Carpenter yet, and Richard Masur we hadn't met, but the rest of the living cast, I believe, was there, including Wilford Brimley, who I believe we share a story about how he was going to the bathroom when David and I went into the bathroom. So we took a piss while he took a shit. A lot of fiber in his diet. Oatmeal does that to you, I guess. So enjoy the Swearwolves episode 4, The Thing About Sci-Fi Horror. Welcome to the Swearwolves Horror Podcast, the podcast that discusses all things horror. I'm Bret.
I'm David.
I'm Alan.
And welcome to episode number 4. In this episode, we decided to discuss sci-fi horror movies. I believe I had brought up to you guys a few weeks back off mic about The Predator and whether or not that was considered a horror movie. Because I know there's a lot of people, at least in the collectible arena of horror stuff, that collect Predator collectibles. Do you guys consider that to be a sci-fi horror movie? I mean, it's an action film, right?
It's definitely action.
Yeah, I would. It's weird. And I'm sure we're all geeky where we have our Blu-ray collection sorted strangely, and The Predator is right between the sci-fi and the horror section of my collection. But yeah, I'd say it blurs that line.
It definitely does, and especially when, another great sci-fi horror movie is Alien, right? The original. And I think when Alien and Predator started crossing, which I actually like that movie, Alien versus Predator, the first one.
Yeah, I remember that one. That one's pretty good.
It was actually really good. But Alien, the first original, we'll just say Alien, because everybody always prefaces that by saying, "Oh, the original Alien," but Aliens was the sequel. So
it's just Alien, and Aliens is the sequel.
Yeah. But Alien is a horror movie, in my opinion. I mean, I guess we could throw sci-fi horror just because they're in space.
Right.
Yeah, that one and Predator are both monster movies at the heart of it.
Yeah, definitely. But I really like Predator, the original Predator. I haven't seen the latest one.
I haven't either.
It looks pretty good
things,
though.
But yeah, it does look cool.
I saw Predator 2. I did not like.
I didn't like that one either. That's the one that's in the city, right?
Yeah,
Danny Glover.
Oh, yeah.
Predator 2 was a dark comedy movie.
I don't think intentionally. The film was dark and it made me laugh.
Yeah.
Another favorite sci-fi horror movie that I have is The Fly.
Yes.
Jeff Goldblum.
Goldblum. No, the Cronenberg, right?
Agreed. Yeah.
I think that's creepy when he starts turning. And he's got that jar. He's got those jars of like body parts that have fallen off. There was a penis in there. Wasn't there?
Yeah, there was a dick. Yeah, there's like a human fly dick.
There was a part in that where he started transforming, but it was very subtle.
Mm-hmm.
It was very subtle moments, like when he started to get that. I guess it was like a hair on his back.
Yeah,
and it was so subtle. It was such a subtle effect, but it was so disgusting, you know.
And he plucks it and it's real
And
thick.
it's really thick, and it's, you know, just little things like
he starts
that.
getting the sores.
Yeah.
Yeah, his complexion starts to change.
Right. And at first it's not like in your face effects, you know, but it does the trick. You know, it's so subtle, and it's such a minor effect, but it really gets to you, to me personally, more so than some of the gorier effects from other movies. And then the movie starts to take off, and, you know, some really nasty shit starts happening.
Do you remember when they do the first transportation with the chimp?
Yeah,
And
the
it
baboon,
gets-
right?
Oh,
Yeah.
it gets all mangled.
That's what I was gonna say. That was an image that stayed with me as a kid. When they transported it and he fucks it up,
yeah, and it's just an abomination.
and then he's like, "Man, fuck it, I'll get in there."
I'll get in there.
And
The original Fly, the 1950s or 60s movie.
think it
Did
was
you guys?
50s.
Vincent Price? Like,
did you guys see that?
58. I have
No.
seen it.
What is that about?
But I don't remember much of it.
Because obviously that's not about a guy who teleports and mixes with a fly, right?
I think so.
Is
Well, I
it?
don't know if it has a teleportation part, but he does become.
But doesn't he become small?
Yeah, I think so.
He's all,
Yeah.
help
Help me, help me. That's all I know about that movie is the help
Yeah,
me.
exactly. I've never seen it. In fact, I don't think I've ever seen a Vincent Price film.
What?
really?
Yeah. Except for, well,
I don't remember the last one I saw.
I'm a big fan of the original House of Wax. That's
Yeah,
a
there
really
you
good
go.
Vincent Price movie. I love that one.
it's better than the one with Paris Hilton.
It really is. Although
Paris Hilton
I
dies.
don't-
I shouldn't
I
say
actually
that.
don't find
I don't mind
the
Paris
remake
Hilton.
to be that bad. I expected that movie to be terrible.
No, and Paris Hilton doesn't annoy me
Yeah.
as much as like
No.
people.
That's one of those movies I really don't know if I like it or if my expectations were just so low that when I saw it, I
Yeah.
was like, oh, this is actually a pretty good movie.
Yeah, no, it wasn't that bad.
It wasn't that bad.
But it
at
wasn't sci-fi, so let's move on. David, what do you got on your list?
For me, I would say, have you ever seen Sunshine?
all. Mm-mm.
You guys are killing me. here.
Sunshine.
Yeah, it's a Danny Boyle movie.
Okay.
And it takes place in space, obviously. And it's the Earth is dying, and essentially the sun has stopped. Like the sun has died. So they send a crew of people to reignite the sun with nuclear power. But they're the second crew that gets sent up, and we don't really know exactly what happened to the first crew.
Ooh, I kind of like things like
And
that.
it's a really weird movie. When you watch it, it's one of those that shifts gears about 2/3 of the way in. It really starts as like a hard sci-fi movie. It kind of reminded me of Alien.
Yeah.
And then it turns into sort of a monster movie.
What year?
Maybe 2000, I'm going to say like 2005,
So this was
2008,
after
somewhere in there.
28 days later? Because
Yeah,
Danny
yeah, it
Boyle
was
did
after
that one, right?
Yep.
I kind of like that, you know, that storyline in movies. Like, what happened to that original crew?
Right.
You
Yeah.
know?
And yeah, you
I'll have to
find
check
out.
that movie
It's
out.
actually really cool.
Yeah.
What do you got on your list, Alan?
Well, I have Life Force. It's a movie I saw a few years ago. I picked up the special edition Blu-ray that Scream Factory put out, and it's from 1985.
It's Toby Hooper, right?
Correct. Yeah, he directed it. It's basically a space vampire flick. It's another one of those movies that basically takes that element of what happened to that original crew. So the way it starts out is this crew is going out to space to Halley's Comet, and they're going out to the tail of Halley's Comet. And within 9,000 miles of the comet there's a alien spacecraft. And so they go out there and they enter the spacecraft and they recover 3 bodies, and they're enclosed in like these kind of glass, almost like coffins or chambers. And so they take them back aboard the craft, and the movie kind of fast forwards to the British space station. They send another crew to outer space to find that original spaceship that recovered these bodies. And they link up the 2 ships, and they go into the original spacecraft, and it's just burned. It's charred. They don't know what happened. But then they find the 3 bodies still enclosed in these glass chambers. And they look like they're asleep. And, you know, it's a woman and 2 guys, and they're nude and they're unscathed, they're untouched, but everything on this ship is destroyed. They find bodies charred to death, and it's really bizarre. So this new craft takes the bodies back to Earth, and they have the woman on a operating table, and she comes alive, and she attacks a guard. The guard is attracted to her,
She's naked, right?
Yeah, she's naked.
She's naked a lot in that movie from what I
Yeah.
read. It's like the only thing I remember about the movie is that she's naked.
Is there anybody in this, like, name-wise?
Steve Railsback,
Okay.
Patrick Stewart.
Oh.
Who else? The girl is Matilda May. I think it's her first major film role. But I don't want to get too much into it. I just wanted to kind of set,
I remember
the
liking
setting. It's really
aside from the gratuitous nudity, I do remember also liking the movie.
yeah. And what was cool about this movie is the movie has good logic. They figure out what this girl's doing to people, and she's going around London, and then the other two guys come into play, the other two space vampires. So London just goes into chaos. But I don't want to give too much away, but check it out, definitely.
Eventually, every type of monster or franchise, they all end up in Sharknado. Eventually. I'm still waiting for Jaws in space. It's going to happen.
Jaws in space should happen.
Let's make it happen.
Well, probably Sharknado. They're probably going to do a Sharknado in space. Vampire, real quick, kind of divert this conversation, but I was talking to my wife last night about vampires because we were watching Interview with the Vampire. She had a dream about it for whatever reason. She's like, I want to watch this movie, so put it on. And it's a good movie, actually.
I do like that movie.
But why is it that I shouldn't say all, but most women love vampires in some form? Like, they might not love Bela Lugosi, but they love Brad Pitt.
There's like a romanticism.
They love Twilight
element to it.
or they love True Blood. That was a pretty big TV show with vampires, and everybody was all about the vampires and how the vampires just chicks just get turned on by vampires. I don't know what it is.
True.
Why though?
I don't know. It's the shimmering skin.
That's
I don't
only,
know
that's
the
only in Twilight.
movies. I once got stuck watching the entire Twilight series, like a marathon. It was my wife and her
she likes it
sister
though, right?
And her aunt. I think she does. And it was rough. It was a rough day.
Chicks like vampires.
Yeah, there's something about, most vampire movies, the vampire needs someone to live on,
But they fall in love with them, and then when in that movie, Lestat, Tom Cruise is feeding on this chick, and she's having an orgasm, and she's bleeding out, and she's all
maybe it feels really good. I don't know.
I don't know either. But another sci-fi film. I'll have to check out Life Force. I've heard about it. And I did hear that it was vampires in space, so that kind of turned me off.
Really quick, it took the vampire story, but it took it to another level. And another thing is, these vampires aren't biting into other people; they're actually drawing the life force.
There you go.
Out of other.
We got a title.
Oh.
Yeah, so they're not biting, but
they're taking our life force.
Yeah, there's really cool effects in it, but you got to check it out.
That's cool.
How about the movie Cube? Did you guys ever see that movie? Came out in the late 90s.
Who's in it?
No one, as far as I remember. I mean, people are in it. It's not just a cube.
Is it Cube or
box.
The Cube?
I think it's just Cube.
Oh, it's just Cube? I was thinking of something else.
But it's
I don't think I ever saw
these
it, though.
people wake up and they're in a room. The thing I really liked, because it was a smaller, I don't know if it was an independent film, but it definitely a low budget. And they could film the whole movie in one room. Even though they're going from room to room, every room looks the same, except for maybe a different color. But they wake up, they don't know why they're there. It's kind of that whole premise. And they're trying to escape, and each room might have a booby trap in it. And it was pretty intense, and it's definitely falls in that sci-fi kind of horror, what the fuck are we doing here? It was really good, and I really liked that movie when it first came out. They made a couple of sequels, Cube 2 and I think Cube 0. I don't know if they made it
from 2 to 0.
Well, 0 was a prequel.
Oh, I was gonna say it seems like a cubed
Yeah, they didn't want to call that.
They missed an opportunity there.
Cubed would have just
You had one job to
blown
do.
people's mind.
Cube title maker guy.
That would
You
have just
piece
blown.
of shit.
Isn't that an imaginary number? Cube.
Cube. Your brain just explodes.
Yeah. You got another one that we've seen, David?
No.
I have another one. You got another one, Alan? No.
Well, I was gonna say the Predator 2, and that you raised a really good
As well,
question.
you mean?
Yeah, but
Not Predator 2.
no, not Predator.
Not also.
but Predator also.
How about this movie? Critters. Sci-fi horror.
I was just thinking about Critters the other day.
I loved that movie when I was a kid.
Well, it's because I remember that was one of those, the box art. You go to the
Yeah.
video store, the box art was awesome with the big critter.
Yeah.
Same thing with Ghoulies, a little creature coming out of
Ghoulies
coming
was-
out of the
man.
toilet.
So misrepresented.
Ghoulies was terrible.
But Critters I thought was really good. And like the aliens come down that are hunting the critters and they take the form of that like rock band. And that kid like really likes that those rock band guys and he's all about them. That movie I thought was really
Does that
good.
have Dee Wallace in it? Critters?
I think it does have Dee Wallace. And I think the boy,
The boy's somebody too.
but he I think was her in real life, like stepson.
Oh, okay.
I got another one before we get into kind of our major discussion here. Swamp Thing. That movie, with Adrian Barbeau, I saw that movie when I was just a little kid, and I just remember being creeped out by that movie. And it's sci-fi, and it's horror.
Yeah, when I was a kid too.
I saw it, as a kid. I don't remember it well, but I remember liking it.
Oh, I loved that movie.
They're
It
doing
was-
aren't they doing a remake or a TV show? I think.
Oh, yeah.
Based on Swamp Thing, and Derek Mears, who played Jason in the Friday the 13th remake, is going to be in it.
Oh, is he going
I
to
think
be
he's playing the
Swamp
Swamp
Thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's a Marvel comic.
Wasn't there a cartoon as well?
Yeah, there was like a Saturday morning cartoon. kind of
Briefly,
thing.
right?
That sounds
Around the same
familiar.
time as there was like the Toxic Crusaders.
Oh yeah.
I want to say late 80s.
Toxic
Crusaders.
Crusaders. They're gross, but they still get girls.
You could never. Yeah. It wouldn't fly today.
Oh, well, no, never mind. Yeah, so sci-fi horror movies probably. I know your guys' favorite,
Yeah.
The Thing. John Carpenter's The Thing.
Yes.
Yep.
Let's talk about it. What do you guys think about this movie?
When I first saw it, I don't remember how old I was. I was probably a pre-teenager, but it was on television, so I didn't get the full version at the time. But what I saw, it just blew me away. I couldn't believe what I was seeing on TV. And it's pretty funny because we were flipping channels. My dad was sitting there on the couch, and we just started watching it, and we didn't know what we were watching. Like, it was an action movie or what is this, So, we were watching, and then, you started seeing the Thing transform in these guys, and, you start seeing all this fucked up shit happening to them. And the thing that's memorable for me is it made my dad laugh. like none of us were freaked out. I was just like, wow, like, what is this? And my dad was just laughing. He thought it was funny. But no, it when I first saw it, I couldn't believe what I was watching, and it stuck with me ever since. And to this day, it's still one of the best, not only sci-fi horror movies, but one of the best movies I've ever seen. The cast of characters, you have the music, it all just adds up to me.
For me, very similar. It's my favorite horror movie, and it might well be it's one of my top favorite movies ever. It's probably in my top 5, maybe higher.
I would say the same.
But I remember the first time I saw it, I was just starting to get into scary movies and spooky things, and I was probably maybe like 8 or 9 years old. And I remember asking my dad. My mom had already gone to bed one night, and I was like, "Hey, can we watch something scary?" And my dad, I could see the hesitation. He was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Something really scary."
Did he have like a VHS collection?
Yeah, he had a VHS. Do
your parents like horror movies?
My dad, yeah, a little bit. My parents, I grew up in a Halloween house for sure. Halloween was still is with my family. So yeah, big into horror movies, but I also was pretty sheltered and they were pretty protective. So I got a lot of TV versions of stuff. But the thing was one that my dad had, dubbed it from a video store, like a Macrovision or whatever. He was like, "All right, let's watch this movie. If it's too much or you start getting scared, let me know and we'll shut it off." And we put it on, and I just remember being creeped out, like just from the very beginning. That music.
But you didn't tell him to shut it off.
No. We went all the way through
with it.
But that Morricone score with the dun dun, dun dun, the little heartbeat sounding synth bass line. And then just the special effects. I know we're going to talk about the movie, so I don't want to get too much into the plot, but I think the blood test scene is one of the best scenes ever filmed in a movie. It is pure tension. The tension in that scene is so good. That's a movie. I was thinking about this the other day. I think Alfred Hitchcock died in 1980, and that movie came out in 82. And I always wondered what would Hitchcock have thought of that movie. And I feel like that scene in particular with all the guys, nobody trusts anybody. Everyone's paranoid. They're all drawing blood. And it's like the pacing of that scene.
Suspenseful.
I think he would have really appreciated it.
And I will say that John Carpenter has made some of the best films in the genre. Real quick, before we continue with the thing, I forgot. I'd be remiss if I didn't say They Live is one of my favorite sci-fi horror movies.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Agreed.
I think They Live is one of my favorite movies. And I really like The Thing as well. I haven't seen it nearly as many times as you guys have, and I didn't see it when I was young. I actually saw it probably for the first time about 15 years ago. We were having my mom and her husband wanted to have like a horror movie night, and we went over there and they rented The Thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, I've never seen this before. And I just remember watching it. And of course you can tell that it was made in 1982, but it could have been made.
You forget that it's
this year,
right?
Like it could have been like a period piece. Like, oh, we're just going to set this in 1982. Right. The acting, I mean, except for the fact that I know Kurt Russell is a lot younger than he actually is, but Kurt Russell, the acting is just really good from him. You got Wilford Brimley, who's well known. Everybody else is kind of not well known.
Right. There's a lot of character actors.
There's a lot of character actors, people that maybe have never done much since, but they all did such a really good job of, and well-defined characters as well.
Yeah.
They just look like a group of guys who are out there and hanging out and playing pinball or whatever they're doing at this outpost, and they this thing comes to them,
infiltrates.
Yeah. And they figure it out. And Kurt Russell's such a badass.
Yeah.
He's a badass in every John Carpenter film he's in, right?
and Brett, you mentioned something. You said you didn't see it early in life. A lot of people didn't see that movie when it came out.
Yeah, it was a commercial failure, and I think a critical failure. Like critics and audience alike didn't
well,
get it.
Well, it was coming out in 82, so what was it competing against?
It came out the same week
Blade Runner, right?
I think it was Blade Runner, but the big one was E.T.
E.T. came out. I think E.T. came out a few weeks before, and I believe Blade Runner came out the exact same day, which that's an amazing day for movies.
So the marketing wasn't there because at the time when E.T. came out, America was just in love with E.T.
Oh, of course.
You think back to the merchandising and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's very family friendly. This was
and when
John Carpenter's The Thing would become your family.
Right. So they didn't want people to have kind of a negative look on an alien with like a movie like The Thing. They wanted to, kind of push the E.T. instead of The Thing.
Yeah, and when did Poltergeist come out? That probably came out
same year, I think 82,
right around the same time. So that was a pretty big film for Spielberg, and then you got E.T., another Spielberg film. It was Spielberg.
Factor.
George Lucas was because Indiana Jones had to have come out
81, I think, the first one.
Yep.
Something like
so we're talking like really big blockbuster films, and then you got this lowly,
very bleak,
horror director in John Carpenter, who made probably one of the best horror films ever in Halloween.
But it wasn't enough. These, Spielberg and Lucas were getting all the press.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's too bad. Do you think it's come into its own over time?
It has, absolutely.
It's still kind of, I think, a niche audience, though. I don't think people. Like, if you say, oh, name me your top 10 to the average person, they're not going to say The Thing.
The Thing's not going to be in there.
No. They're
Well-
gonna say Chucky
Well,
in space.
what's cool about The Thing is, you know, in recent years with horror conventions and, you know, horror magazines, Fangoria and that sort of thing, they've kind of kept it alive. So that cult following, and then of course the internet culture, it's always, you know, kept that movie alive. But not only that, the people who were big fans of it and are now working in Hollywood, they always cite that as an influence, whether
Oh,
they're
yeah,
you
like,
know, makeup artists or directors.
Or even plot, like if you guys remember the movie The Faculty, there
Yeah.
is a scene that's a direct ripoff
Yep.
of the blood test scene.
Yeah.
Where the kids have to snort
Yeah.
the.
Well, and
the drug.
realistically, that movie is like kind of a remake. It's like
Yeah.
Dawson's Creek meets The Thing.
It is.
Who did the special effects? Do you guys know?
I don't remember the.
It wasn't like Rick
something-
Baker or
No,
anything
it's
like
like
that? No.
something Botten or.
Okay.
You know what I'm talking about? But he was really young, and I think it was his first major break. I want to say the guy was in his early 20s.
Those are really good special effects.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
The other thing that I was going to mention about it before we get into, because they made a prequel called The Thing also. Not The Thing also, but this had the same title. And it was a prequel, which was actually pretty good. But just based on The Thing, what is The Thing?
It's an alien.
Do we know that? Like,
Yeah,
I
'cause
mean, do we know that
yeah,
it's alien to the world?
Well, in '82, yeah, because at the very beginning of the movie, you see the ship crash to Earth.
Oh, you do?
Yep, and I think that might even be before the credits, or maybe right after. But
Okay.
yeah, that's how the movie starts. And then when they unearth it, or when they go to the site, they find the ship, or parts of it. And they when they go to the Norwegian camp, they see the video of them excavating it. And you see overhead shots of the spaceship under the ice. And one of the characters even says, like, this, judging by the thickness of the ice, what was the time? 100,000 years? Something like that.
Yeah,
I think he
so
said
it's
long
this has been
time.
buried here for 100,000 years
Yeah.
or something
Oh,
like that.
wow.
It was a long time.
But Rob Bottin did the
I think-
Special
the
effects.
effects. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I think he had the last name,
Yeah.
but he's a frequent collaborator with John Carpenter. So
Okay.
yeah, I was going to say Roddy Bottom, but that's the guy from Faith No More.
What is it? So it's an alien. We know it's an alien, so that makes this sci-fi. But what makes it so scary?
I think it's a combination, the music,
The suspense, obviously, and the blood
fact-
drawing scene.
and the setting that they're in a very desolate. It takes place in Antarctica, where no one can help them and no one can escape. So I think there's a claustrophobic element to the movie.
And why are they there?
I don't think that's ever explained.
Are they military or are they like?
That's always been my one gripe about the movie is they're scientists, right? But none of them really act like scientists, other
of
than
them are
maybe
smart.
Wilford Brimley and what's the one guy's character, Copper. They're really the only ones that seem kind of sciencey.
Yeah, because there's a couple like
I guess
assholes.
Fuchs is kind of sciencey. But yeah, you got your kind of wise guys, you got your stoner guy.
Yeah,
I don't know. But I
they're
still
just
like
there
it.
hanging
Yeah,
out
they're just hanging
in
out.
Antarctica, like you do.
Keeping warm.
We touched on what is the thing or what, but there's also theories about what happens at the end,
Yeah.
right? Because at the end we just got two characters left.
Yeah, we got just Childs and McCready. So Keith David and Kurt Russell are your
Kurt Russell
your
and
last
Keith
two.
David are sitting there and they're kind of laughing, sharing like, oh, we just went through some shit.
Yeah, so basically everyone dies. They set the camp on fire. There's a big showdown between Kurt Russell and the Thing, and it's this giant monster at this point. And yeah, they burn the camp to the ground, and it's just the two of them, and they're just sitting there, and they don't know. They got
Sitting outside.
separated.
They're sitting outside,
Yep.
right? So they're
Yep.
in the cold. They got separated. They're back together.
Yeah, and they don't know. Neither one knows where the other one was. They both have their own version of where they went.
And we've just
we
been
as the audience,
following-
we know what happened to Kurt Russell.
Because we've been following
We've
him.
been following
He's
him.
the
We don't
main-
know about Keith David, and they're sitting there having a drink. And there's all sorts of theories as to who is the Thing. Is either of them? Are both of them? I think Alan and I have discussed this before. I think we're on the same page that we both think Childs
Keith David.
Keith David is
Well,
the
because when he
Thing.
breathes, there's no.
Yeah, so it's very cold, and you can see Kurt Russell's breath as he's talking, and you don't see that from Keith David. Although you do a little bit.
no, you do briefly. There is, it's very brief, but you do see his breath in the cold just slightly.
I'd like to think he's
Yeah,
So
because I remember reading too that they were like, "Oh, you can't see his breath," and I watched it the last one. I was like, "Yeah, you can a little bit."
You know, we have, as Dave said, we have discussed this in the past, and sometimes my opinion changes. I kind of did a little research on it, and I've read some interviews with John Carpenter, or some experts from interviews, where Carpenter states that we're not supposed to know who it is.
Yeah,
Like,
it's intentionally ambiguous.
It's correct. But there's things that I see in the film where I kind of feel like, well, you know, it's obviously, you know, him. And when I say him, there's two factors. So if it's Child's, there's the factor of he's wearing different clothes. Did you know that?
No, his clothes changed.
His clothes change
So maybe he ripped out of his.
or something, or yeah,
That's interesting because Kurt Russell even makes a comment like that part where he's recording himself talking into the tape. He's like, "I think it rips through you before it takes you." He talks about finding shredded clothes.
Right. So, you know, and I've read,
But when he finds it, it's his clothes because somebody was trying to frame him.
there's the other factor with the
drink.
the drink that McCready has.
This is actually my favorite theory. I like.
Yeah.
What is okay? Let's go into this a little bit further because I think I've heard this before, but refresh my memory.
So we'll go back to where McCready battles the thing.
So it's when they're setting the camp on fire.
Right.
He's got a bunch of Molotov cocktails and stuff, and
Yeah.
he's setting fires and burning stuff.
Okay. Oh, I see where this is going.
So
Gasoline in these bottles.
right. So there's a scene, the scene where McCready, he already battles the thing, and
Yeah, and he and Keith David are sitting there talking things out, and Kurt Russell hands him the bottle, right?
well, here's the thing. McCready doesn't he take a drink?
He does.
But
he takes a swig, and then he hands it to Keith David, and then when Keith David takes a sip, it goes back to Kurt Russell, and he goes...
he kind of laughs.
He goes, huh. Yeah, he kind of has this weird chuckle.
And then it goes dun dun.
Yeah.
Oh,
So the implication is that he deliberately tested him by giving him gasoline or whatever was in this bottle. Keith David, who is the thing, drinks it,
trying to
blend in and assimilate, and I think it's
Now keep in
Kurt
mind,
Russell's kind of like, yep. But the sad part is there's not a damn thing he can do about it because
Right.
they're both gonna freeze to death out there.
Now keep in mind, if you're listening, if you never seen the thing before, and you know, you're wondering like, well, why is he drinking gasoline? Well, the alien is not going to know, you know, what
alcohol tastes like.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. What
these-
lighter fluid
yeah,
or
this is
or
what they do.
gasoline, you know?
Which begs the question: did he like it? Like when he drank
Yeah,
it, he's
I
like, "This
kinda
is good, this is
wondered
good shit," or was he like, "Why do people drink this swill?"
But so Kurt Russell takes a drink though.
Well,
He takes one for the team, I think. Team Human.
or
He
he
would die.
pretends.
He would die.
Yeah.
He would die.
Do we see him swallow it? I don't know.
He could pretend, you know.
And he just kind of dribbled it out of the corner of his mouth, like when Keith David wasn't looking anymore. He's like,
you know, because for him to pull off that trick, he's going to pretend to take a drink to show, if this is the thing, to show that, you know, hey, I'm drinking this. It's good. You have some too.
Yeah.
yeah. And then Kurt Russell, like, we don't see it because this is
And then
after the credits roll. He goes and he pees and it burns like a
Yeah.
mofo.
Right.
Yeah, and he lights it
lights
on
his urine on
fire,
fire
and
and
it's
he-
like a flamethrower. So he takes the drink. Keith David takes the drink. Kurt Russell starts laughing. Keith David starts laughing.
And that's
Yeah,
where it
and
ends.
that's
And
the end of
that's
the
where it
movie.
ends.
And
Yep.
it zooms
I
out.
like to think that neither one of them are the thing, and they're just laughing because they're like,
They're
oh,
gonna
we just
die.
went through some shit.
And now we're gonna
Here we
freeze to
are.
death.
I've read people have
Because I love
asked-
Keith David's character in that movie.
He's awesome.
Yeah. People have asked John Carpenter, you know, about the gasoline. Well, he drinks gasoline. He's like, no, it's not gasoline. That's actually a drink.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I think what John Carpenter is trying to do is trying to just keep it out in the open.
Well,
And that's part of what makes it such a good movie,
Right.
Because you talk about it and you
Yeah.
hear these different theories, and you're like, oh my god, that could be could be true. That would be awesome.
Anytime there's theories about a movie, we talked about this I think a couple episodes ago, but like my theory on Friday the 13th or whatever.
Right.
It's like when a movie gets you talking and you have to talk about it afterwards.
That's when you
I
know
said
it's-
this before. it makes
it special.
Yeah, that's how you know it's a good movie. Now I was gonna watch The Thing this week, but I don't know where my DVD copy of it is. I have a John Carpenter it's got 4 movies, 4 different discs of The Thing, Village of the Damned, Prince of Darkness, and They Live.
Oh, cool.
And I watched They Live recently, and now I can't find the DVD. So that's what you get when you have kids.
Real quick, just on the soundtracks, we've brought that up a couple times in the dun dun, like the ominous music. Waxwork Records released a really cool deluxe version of it on vinyl, where it comes in a slipcase that looks like ice and it breaks apart, like to open the sleeve.
Do you have that?
Yeah, I can show you guys. Yeah, you got to open it by pulling it apart. Just really, really cool. And then the music's so creepy. And just awesome.
We should add on our website on the swearwolves.com, we'll post some pictures of, maybe you can post a picture of that. I wanted to talk about our experience, or your guys' experience more so than mine, at Son of Monsterpalooza last year, because most of the cast, with the exception of Kurt Russell, was there.
Yeah, most of them.
Everybody who was still alive.
A couple of them are gone.
A couple of them have passed away, and Kurt Russell's too big of a star now.
Someday, Kurt, we'll get you.
Someday.
We'll get you.
But you guys got to meet all those people.
Yeah, so we got to meet
Wilford Brimley.
Yep. Keith David, David Clennon, who played Palmer, Joel Polis, who played Fuchs, and Thomas Waits, who played Windows. And all of them really couldn't have been nicer people. Wilford Brimley, he's pretty old. He was pretty quiet, but still very, very nice.
I like the fact that on his table, they always have the 8x10s from the different stuff they've done. And on his table, he had an 8x10 of him with Quaker Oats.
Yep.
And he had some Quaker Oats that day, because I bumped into him into the men's room.
We
almost got killed by him. He was on a little scooter. He had to shit something fierce, because he came whipping around that corner and almost took us out. So I'm glad Wilford made it.
I was like, we went to the bathroom at the same time as Wilford Brimley.
We're poop brothers.
Well, I didn't. That seems to happen to you a lot.
It unites us. It really. So we met them, and then so I brought with me. So I had a couple of things that I got the cast to sign. So I brought a not an original, but a replica of the poster, the movie poster art. So I got all of them to sign that, and then I also bought online glass petri dishes. And going back to that scene, the blood test scene, which we didn't really elaborate a whole lot on, but there's a scene in the movie where Kurt Russell devises this plan to test who is human and who isn't. So he has each member of the crew, cut their thumb open and squeeze really an unnecessarily large amount of blood into individual petri dishes, and then he takes a hot needle and sticks it in the petri dish. And the theory is that if you're infected, your blood would try to escape because you're not human, and it would jump out of the petri dish.
And at that point, they've determined that it doesn't like fire.
It does not. Yeah, they know it doesn't like heat, and it wants to stay cold, which Antarctica is the ideal place.
Well, realistically, is the Earth then threatened by this thing? Because it's not going to go to the equator. It's just going to hang out in Antarctica.
Yeah. It's going to be like reverse.
And all it wants to do is hang out with these guys and have a drink. I mean, if it's true that
I just want to infect you, replicate you, but ultimately befriend you.
But just one. I mean, they keep killing it and it keeps jumping into another body. If they would just let it stay.
Yeah, let it just hang out.
It gets bored very eat
Let it be the dog.
Yeah. Yeah, or maybe just sit it down and be like, hey, listen.
Those other dogs
we're going to let you live. But don't eat me.
I mean, I feel like
don't kill me.
I feel like we're jumping all over the place, but how it gets to their camp is because of that dog, right?
Yeah.
So there's this chopper at the beginning of the movie chasing after this dog running through the snow
from the Norwegian camp.
And the dog comes and the guy gets out of the chopper and he's like talking Norwegian to them, and don't they kill him?
Yeah, they kill him.
Yeah. Because
he's actually warning them in Norwegian, but
because he's trying to shoot the dog.
He's trying to shoot the dog. They don't know what he's doing,
so they shoot him back,
shooting him. But in Norwegian, he's saying it's gonna fucking kill you.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
It's not a dog, and
but they don't know.
And the prequel, to jump around even further before we get back to David's story, in the prequel, they are in the original movie. They go to the Norwegian camp. They see the charred remains of it. They kind of figure out some stuff. We talked about that earlier, but in the prequel that they made, it's what happened at the Norwegian camp when they uncovered the aliens. And they did a really good job of, we were talking about this before we started recording. They did a really good job of replicating the camp that they established.
Yeah, it looks identical
in the
They did a really good
1982
job.
film.
They stayed true to the original.
And I really
source
thought that was a good
material.
idea to go before, because, you know, they could have done, oh, this is a sequel, and they come across their camp and there's the bodies of Kurt Russell and Keith David just hanging out. And
Yeah, but I thought the prequel was very well done.
yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Oh.
they do the blood test.
Yeah, so I took, I ordered a bunch of Petri dishes, glass Petri dishes online, and I brought those with me too. So I had every cast member also sign a Petri dish. So each dish I labeled. So I've got I've got a Blair, I've got a Fuchs, I've got a Windows, I got a Palmer. Who am I missing? I feel like there's one more.
Well, you had Wilford Brimley do it, but he doesn't
Yeah,
do the
Wilford
blood.
Brimley's not in the scene. So
Yeah,
I got a
'cause
Blair
he's-
one,
is
but
he
technically
de-
Blair's not in that
Is he
scene.
dead at that point?
He,
His character?
no, he dies he's one of the last to go.
So why doesn't he do the blood test?
Oh, because at that point they had already locked him out in a shack, I think.
Oh, they were like,
Yeah, they had already banished him.
they think was he the thing?
At some point he does become, because he tries to build a spaceship to get out of there.
So he just wants to, he's like E.T. He
Yeah,
just wants to go back home. Just give him a speak and say. And
So I had all the cast members also sign a dish, which was really cool.
It's awesome.
Wilford Brimley was really confused. He didn't. I could tell like his handler or his assistant, whoever was helping him, kind of explain what it was, and I could see it in his eyes that he didn't really care.
Yeah.
He was like, yeah, whatever, dude, I'll sign this. But he was still nice. But Keith David in particular was really excited about it, and he was like, holy shit, I've never been asked to sign one of these. Which
I loved him in that scene.
I just remember him eating a Subway sub. And his hands were kind of all
He
greasy.
had a bag of potato chips too.
Yeah, and a bag of potato chips. He's like moving his fingers around.
And
He's
of
all,
course-
what's this?
He was still eating a sandwich while he was talking to us.
I was next in line and I had my photo and he was like eating his chips. I was like, oh,
Just for
please.
a second there, I thought
Please
you
use a
meant he was
napkin.
eating a sandwich in that blood test scene. I was like, I do not remember him eating
No,
Subway.
no, when we met him.
They had a Subway in Antarctica? That's an anachronism. That's my whole thought on this movie is different now. But he was really excited about it, and it was really cool. I think he even like flagged a couple people down, like, oh, check this out.
Yeah.
So now I've got in my game room in my house where I've got all my horror stuff that's signed, all of it displayed. I've got the poster framed, and then right underneath the frame, I've got a shelf that has all the Petri dishes. And I do have an extra one set aside for McCready if I can ever get Kurt Russell.
We'll get him one day.
I'll get
so
you someday.
you got to take some pictures of those.
Yeah, I'll post
those online
Yep,
too.
I'll post those up for sure.
What about your experience there at Son of Monsterpalooza getting your stuff signed? What'd you get?
Well, I got
Just a poster?
no scenes from the movie in photographs.
Oh,
So,
nice.
My wall, I like to get scenes from movies, like, action stills and that sort of thing. So the one I got Keith David to sign was him and McCready, and McCready's doing the test. So I got those on the wall. I thought about a poster, but I couldn't find. I wanted to find a nice poster, but I couldn't find one that I really liked.
There was the one that they had for sale there. Was it there? There was this really nice
It's one of those Mondo posters, maybe?
Yeah. I saw
they
a
got
couple guys getting that signed, and
Yeah.
it was an expensive poster,
Yeah,
but
those
the
fetch big
artwork
bucks.
was
There's a lot of reproduction, or not necessarily reproduction, but
Some of those limited edition
Yeah.
ones that Mondo does. where
yeah, I
they've got
can't find the word for them, but they're you have artists that recreate movie posters, so I guess they're
Yeah.
recreations. But yeah, they do go for big bucks, and a lot of them are really cool. So I have a few in my room of different movies.
The other thing that you got signed, which I'm very jealous of because I could never get this done now, is you got a They Live poster signed
That's
by
right.
Keith David.
That's right.
Because you had already met Roddy Piper.
That's right.
Before he passed away, obviously.
Oh, yes. Yeah, you brought that poster with you, right?
I
And-
have a theatrical one sheet of the They Live, and I brought that along because I wanted Keith David to sign it, and eventually I'd like to have John Carpenter sign it. But I'm very lucky and fortunate to have met Roddy Piper. He was the first to sign it, so naturally Keith David at Son of Monsterpalooza, I'm going to bring that along.
Yeah. Yeah. Probably. I just watched They Live at the Alamo Draft House. David, I think you went to that too.
I did.
My wife and I went and saw it, and it is such a fun movie.
The movie's a blast
to watch,
Yeah.
especially in the theater, and especially with an audience, because I've seen the movie only on VHS and DVD at home, and watching it with an audience that all wants to be there
Yeah.
and is laughing at the
Laughing all
right
the
spot,
lines.
at the right
Yeah.
spots, and the fight scene,
The endless
Yes.
fight scene.
the best fight scene in
awesome.
any movie.
Yeah.
It goes on for, I want to say 12
It's
minutes,
something insane.
and
They definitely did not use stunt doubles. That
No,
that
and I
was
think-
Roddy Piper and Keith David.
yeah, and I'm pretty sure Roddy Piper choreographed a lot of it, because there's a lot of wrestling
Yeah.
punches and a lot of wrestling moves, suplexes and whatnot. But Roddy Piper actually gives such a great performance in that movie. Like, when I saw that movie as a kid, because I was really big into wrestling, so anytime a wrestler was in a film, I watched it, no holds barred. But Roddy Piper had done a movie previous with Dirk Benedict called Body Slam,
Right.
which was awful. But he was in They Live, and I also liked horror films and sci-fi and all that good stuff. So this was like a perfect mesh of everything that I liked.
Right.
And I saw that movie, and I was like, Roddy Piper should win an Oscar. When I was a kid, I thought that. But I really think if he would have gotten into the right films, he could have gone on and been a really good action star.
Yeah, I agree.
And probably done some better films, because I think he handled the acting. He had the
Yeah.
chops.
It's unfortunate he didn't get those chances. I know throughout the 90s he was in a lot of direct-to-video
What was the Frogs?
action films, and Hell Comes to Frogtown.
Hell Comes to Frogtown. I still want to see that.
I want to see that too.
But it's interesting, the story, how Roddy Piper made it into that movie. So WrestleMania 3, which took place in 87.
Yep.
John Carpenter was in attendance. And I think John Carpenter, this was in Detroit.
Yeah.
So John Carpenter, I think, was living in Detroit at the time, or he was there. But anyways, he was in attendance, and he asked Roddy Piper to be in the movie. And apparently, as a little side note, Hulk Hogan and Vince McMahon weren't too happy. They were kind of jealous, so that's how No Holds Barred came out. But anyways, Alice Cooper was also in attendance at WrestleMania 3, so he made it into Prince of Darkness.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh,
I'm
wow,
not sure
wow.
if that's where that was arranged, but I just found that interesting.
Yeah.
You know, Alice Cooper was there
Yeah.
as well. So, but no, John Carpenter definitely took notice of Roddy Piper's talent, both in and out of the ring, on the microphone.
Oh yeah.
You know, very physical.
One of the
guy.
best talkers.
Yeah, best. You know, one of the greatest talkers in wrestling. Also a very physical guy. Not too big, not too small. Just, you know,
Just right.
yeah, just perfect for the role that he needed. So
It's like the porridge of
Yeah.
actors.
The Goldilocks zone.
Goldilocks.
yeah, he had all the tools for that role, definitely.
And came up with one of the best lines in the movie. I came
And
here
a
to
lot
do
of
two
those lines
things.
in that movie were ad lib too.
Came here-
Including the big one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I came here to do two things: kick
Yeah.
ass and chew bubble gum, and I'm all out of bubble gum.
And you know, everybody,
Why would anybody say that?
I don't know, but I love that line. But everybody loves that line. But you know the one in that movie that I enjoy more.
I think
I think I know too.
Life's a bitch.
She's
and
back
she's
in
back
heat.
in heat.
Yeah, that one's great. But there's also the scene where he's at the convenience store and he's like, you're okay. You're fucking ugly, or whatever he says. He's like just dressing her down. Oh God, it's such a great film. It's gonna sound like a John Carpenter like blowfest here, but
but it kind of is. Like, he's just a great
filmmaker.
Yeah, and he writes, his movies feel like movies that are made for like man children.
That or just him.
Yeah,
He's
it's like, hey, this is the stuff I like, and I'm gonna make.
and I don't give a
Yeah,
shit.
yeah.
And you know what? I'm gonna remake the thing.
Yep.
But I'm not really gonna remake it. I'm gonna make it how I want it to be, because
Right.
the thing
Yeah.
is technically a remake. There was The Thing from Outer Space.
The Thing from
Right.
Another World
Or-
from 1951.
Yeah, and which was also based on a story. Or a
Who
novel.
Goes There? I think it's called Who Goes
Yeah.
There.
That sounds right. Yep.
Yeah, and I've never seen the original. Have you, either of you seen the original?
I have not.
Yeah.
And you know what?
I think we should watch that sometime.
Yeah.
And
I kind of don't really desire to, because the guy who did the original was so unhappy with John Carpenter's version
what a dick.
that it really bothered Carpenter. He was really upset about it.
Whatever.
Because he really liked the original and he wanted to do his own take on it.
Yeah.
But and I can't remember.
So
his
when it
name.
came time for Rob Zombie to remake John Carpenter's movie, he's just like, go for it.
Yeah.
He wasn't a dick about it.
Right.
Do you think that, because there was a while there that I thought maybe they could remake They Live, right?
There was talk, I think, for a while. There was.
I don't think they
were
need to.
talking
I
about
don't
doing
want them to.
it. I don't either.
I just thought they should
It's
just
fine.
re-release it
Yeah.
in mass theaters. But
I think I remember hearing about that. They were supposed to have The Rock in it. I think.
Oh.
And I think he was supposed
It's
to do
gotta be
Big
a
Trouble in
wrestler.
Little China as well. It's just like, come
God.
on.
Oh,
All right,
yeah.
let's not
Yep.
put The Rock in everything. I don't mind Dwayne Johnson, but he doesn't need to be in everything.
Right.
Do you think there's a John Carpenter film that could be remade or should be remade?
I could see Christine, like a modern version. You know what I mean? Like we got the Transformers
like a
movies.
Tesla?
Yeah, I don't know.
it's an
I just feel like you
environmentally
could do a
friendly-
lot, like with movies with car chases and stuff, like Baby Driver and movies like that. Like where I think you could do cool things with a living car,
Yeah.
mowing people down.
Yeah.
I think if they did it right, they could maybe do something with Prince of Darkness.
I was going to say
Yeah,
Prince
I
of
agree.
Darkness as well,
Yeah.
because I think, so before I even ever saw Prince of Darkness, a friend of mine from work and I were talking one day and he's like, you got to see this movie. And I said, what's it about? And he told me everything pretty much. And I was like, that is one of the awesomest stories I've ever heard. Then I watched the movie and I'm like, I mean, I know I
liked
really
the
like
movie.
John Carpenter, but that movie,
It's one of his weirder ones, but I do like it.
I really enjoy Prince of Darkness. I think it has a really great atmosphere. It kept my attention the entire film.
There's some really cool makeup towards the end of the movie too.
Yeah, it had some really great effects. You know,
maybe I just got to
and-
rewatch it because maybe
yeah,
I was
it might
tired.
take another viewing.
I mean, it's not one of my favorite movies of his,
Right.
but it's a good movie.
But I think it could be done,
Yeah.
maybe better. There's not a lot of Carpenter films I would say that about. In fact, I don't think there is another Carpenter film I would say that about, but I think it could be done better.
I thought the music was great. I thought the characters were great. You know, I really enjoyed it.
Well, I'm going to say this. Obviously, the music was good because I think that's one talent that John Carpenter has is scoring his films. And they came out with the John Carpenter anthology last year, 2 years ago.
A couple years ago, I think.
And every once in a while at work, you know, I work at an office, I sit at a desk and I have to concentrate sometimes, but I like listening to stuff. So some days where I don't have to concentrate, I listen to Howard Stern or I listen to different podcasts because I end up thinking about that stuff. But when I need to listen to music, sometimes I'll just put on that anthology because the score of all those different films, it just it relaxes me and I'm just like able to like just do my monotonous work and think about it, but yet have something in the background to keep my brain a little bit busy. And I really would suggest people check that out. I know I listen to it pretty regularly and I love all those pieces. And David, I know you're a huge fan.
Big fan. Yep. And yeah, all of his scores are good. And another thing that makes The Thing unique is that Carpenter didn't do the score on that one. He handed it off to Morricone, but still had input. And you can hear the Carpenter influence for sure. Like,
Yeah.
and that's part of what, again, the universes that John Carpenter creates. It feels like a John Carpenter score, even though if you want to be technical, it isn't.
Well, something about Ennio Morricone. He's been doing soundtracks for decades.
Forever. I think he's still doing stuff.
He's still
What
doing
other
stuff.
films has he done?
He did a bunch of spaghetti westerns, but recently he did the Tarantino movie, the Hateful Eight.
Hateful Eight?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think he won an Oscar for that one, if I remember correctly.
I love that movie.
He is someone who definitely has the talent and the knowledge to take a film and apply the perfect music to it. And that's what he did with The Thing.
Yeah. Kind of real quick. I want to touch base. I haven't played it. Alan, I don't know if you've played it, but David, you bought the board game of the thing.
Yeah, the board game is fantastic. So there's I think it's called Outbreak at Outpost 31. I should, if I was smart, I'd have it in front of me, but I don't.
Earlier, we were wondering what they were doing up there. They were a research team.
Yeah, but what were they researching?
Yeah, I just remember they were a research team.
But yeah, Mondo released a board game version, and it's awesome. So you play with several different people, and depending on how many people you have, either one or two people will be infected. And as the game progresses, if you're the thing, your mission is to either kill it. Like you basically want the everyone to die. So
You want to infect others.
yeah, you infect
without
other
them
people,
knowing.
or you sabotage and you basically destroy the camp. So that way you can go back to sleep or whatever.
Because
then
that's all he wants.
Yeah, it's all he wants. And then if you're a human, your objective is to either kill the thing or escape. Get to the helicopter and get out. But as the game progresses, more people can get infected, and you have cards where you have to sometimes you can sabotage people, or if you need tools to complete a mission, everyone has cards, and you try to pitch in. But it's fun because you can lie and you can try to
That's
trick
great.
people. So if you are the thing, your strategy might be to play nice and just try to make your strategy to get on that helicopter at the end of the game so that you can get to the mainland and kill everybody there.
That sounds like a lot of fun. We
awesome.
should have a night where we do that.
We should totally do that.
Get-
Then
get
there's
a
also an
couple of our friends
Xbox, or there was a video game too that came out in 2002, which I have, but I haven't played it probably since shortly after it came out. But I had it on the original Xbox,
And it was just called The Thing.
it's called The Thing. And I remember it came out to so-so reviews, but I actually liked the game, and I found it really fun and scary and intense, and it has cool ominous music, and it's one of those games where monsters pop out at you and you freak out. But I remember that game being a lot of fun
It's
too.
a survival horror type game,
Yeah.
isn't it?
It is.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. Well, that was our episode on sci-fi horror films. If you guys have any of your favorite sci-fi horror films, please let us know. Send us a message or Facebook us. David, you have all that information. Why don't you tell
So
everybody?
you can reach us through our website, which is www.theswearwolves.com. You can follow us on Twitter @theswearwolves. We're on Facebook as well as the Swearwolves. Or if you want to email us directly, you can do that at swearwolvespodcast@gmail.com.
All right. Well, here's episode 4 in the books. I'm Brett.
I'm David.
I'm Alan.
You guys have a good week.